this nugget, we take a look at side-loading apps. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, folks, let's take a look here at side-loading apps. Now, apps are things that we normally see in the App Store. These are not desktop applications like executables or .msi files, anything like that. These are side-loaded apps, which are, again, line of business apps, usually not found in the App Store. You may have developed those in-house, but you want your users to be able to access them, and they're usually fairly simple applications. They're usually .appx. In fact, they have to be for this context. .appx applications. These are also, by the way, in case you ever want to peek inside of one, these are actually zip files. They just contain a whole bunch of other files. So if you rename an app that has .appx and then you put a .zip on the end of it and double click on it, you'll see that it's just a compressed file with other stuff in it. So anyway, it also will have certificates. Now, what you should use for this when you're developing your own apps is you should use a signed certificate that is signed by a trusted certification authority, such as VeriSign or Microsoft or some other publicly trusted CA. For our demonstrations, we're just going to use a self-signed certificate only to demonstrate that you can use it. Clients must trust the app certificate, and that's why it's better to use a publicly available certification authority. Now, the deployment can go a couple of different ways. Number one, I could deploy to all users using the Deployment Image and Servicing Management tool, or Dism, if you want to call it that. It's a command line tool, and we can just package that into an offline image, and that's one of the exam objectives, by the way. And then the other thing we could do is to use add appx package. Now, there's several different appx package items that you can work with. I just recommend that you kind of go to PowerShell and kind of run through the list of those. They're pretty simple, though. It's add, remove, and get. Those are your main ones. And you can work with those to add applications, remove applications, or to get information about your apps. There's also a few things that are new in Windows 10 that we had different from Windows 8 and 8.1. Number one, you can enable the ability to sideload apps in settings. I'll show you how to do that. And in Windows 8 and 8.1, there was a group policy object that you had to enable. Well, you don't really have to do that anymore. Okay, so that's kind of handy. The other thing is we have license keys in 8 and 8.1 that we would also have to accompany with our side-loaded apps. We no longer require that. That was kind of an unnecessary additional complication that it turns out we really didn't need. After all, these are already signed. So there's not really much need for a license key for us to generate for ourselves for us to use the own apps that we developed in-house, right? It's a little redundant. It's also not necessary for the computer to be domain joined. So those are some new changes here that we have in Windows 10. Now, before we get started, I want to show you a couple of quirky things that are going on with Windows 10. I don't know if these are bugs that Microsoft plans to fix or if they intentionally did this somehow. A few different things, actually. Number one, if I try to click on Microsoft Edge, it won't let me do it. It says I can't open it using a built-in administrator account. Strange, because I didn't think I was using the built-in administrator account, and if I do a Who Am I, you can see indeed I'm using a domain account. Now, the trainer account is a domain admin, so as a result, they're a member of the local administrators security group. And in fact, if I do a Who Am I /all, we'll see that group membership here. So they are a member of, there it is, a member of the administrator's account, but they are not the built-in administrator account. So anyway, if you log on as a member of this security group, which all domain admins would be, and very often your help desk and other folks like that would be, then you're not going to be able to use things like this. Likewise, you can't use the Windows Store. Stuck again. And there's other things I couldn't use either. There was something. OneNote. I tried opening OneNote. Can't do that either. Funny thing is, I can't open OneNote if I just double-click on a OneNote file, and then it pops it open. But otherwise, I can't just launch it on its own. And it's probably because this appears as a tile, as an appx, possibly is the way that's put it in there. I'm not really quite sure. But I can't run any other appx apps either. So this is kind of a limitation with this. I would actually have to log on as an unprivileged account to be able to test all of this. And so I'm going to log off as the administrator account and log on as Phoenix User 01. All right, so here I've logged on as Phoenix User 01. This user has no administrative privilege whatsoever. And if I do a Who Am I all, you'll see that there's just kind of normal. Just member of users. I'm on a remote desktop connection. There's really nothing special about this user at all. So they can use this Windows store. Okay, even the administrators can't do this. Okay, isn't that something? Unprivileged users can access this, but administrators cannot. Strange. So anyway, ooh, Halo. That looks more fun than what I'm about to show you, so maybe we should look into that. Anyway, maybe I should go back out. So, oh, Star Wars too, dang it. Anyway, I've developed an app for you, people, and it's the first app I've ever created. I used Visual Studio Express. I think it's the one for Windows 8. I think it's version 12 or something like that. Probably a little bit older one, but it still works. And it's the first app I've ever developed. I am now a developer, folks. But also, I've never actually tested this. This may actually crash and burn on me, but this is actually my motto for my code. It's probably very deserving of this little slogan that you see here. Anyway, so what I want to point out here as well is we need to enable some things in this to make it work. Strangely enough, if I click on this start button here again and go to settings, I'm going to show you another thing that would have happened if I was still logged on as the trainer account or anybody with a local administrator privilege, member of that local administrator's security group. When you click on this, what we want to do is to go to for developers, and then right now the default is to not use developer features. If I were logged on as a member of administrators, if I click this or this, either one, it kind of blinks at me and then nothing else happens. So I actually, logged on as an administrative user, cannot choose either one of these items. I have to be logged on as Average Joe, and then I can select Sideload Apps or Developer Mode. By the way, I used Developer Mode when I developed the app. I developed it on the same computer we're looking at, and then I switched it back over here. But I'll just click on Sideload Apps for now. And now, with the elevated privilege, I can enter in the same account I would have used to log on that wouldn't let me do this. So it's Trainer. And you can see it's in the James Conrad domain here. And it tells me, oh, this could be risky, but we like risk, so we're going to click on yes. After all, we don't test our code, folks. So that's pretty much it. I can't get used to this, by the way. In Windows, now there's no OK or anything like that for some of these things. It's kind of like a Mac, where you just pick it, and then it's all, and now it's committed. So I can close this, and now it's going to be enabled for side-loaded apps. The other thing I need to do is to import the certificate that goes along with that app. When I created the app, it'll automatically generate a self-signed certificate. And here is the certificate right here. So what I need to do is to install that certificate. I could have also double-clicked on it to choose Open. I'm going to put it in the local machine. And then I, again, need to enter in some credentials for this. So I wouldn't have to do it for the local user, but for the machine I do. So it's going to be trainer and my password, and I'm going to put it in the Trusted Root Certification Authorities. Okay, and then I'll click OK, and Next, and Finish. And then it imported that certificate. So now that it's imported that certificate, it will trust the app that's signed by that certificate. Okay, now you don't just double-click these AppX things or right-click and choose Install, something like that. Oh no, it's not that easy, folks. It actually is pretty easy, but it's not that easy. And so we'll have this AppX that we're going to do from a command line, and then we'll also have this thing. This is a file that it's a dependency. It's a JavaScript part of this that this needs. So you have to put both of those in, and I'll show you how to do that. Well, that's pretty much it. These are the files that I really need to use here, and I've opened up a PowerShell ISC line, and I've just saved this sideload appx.ps1 as a script. Now, scripting is disabled, so I can't really run this as a PS1 file, but I can run the single line here and install this application. You can see that, again, I'm using add appx package, and then I'm pointing to the UNC path to the appx package. The dependency path also points to the appx dependency for JavaScript. And that's pretty much it. Now I'm just going to run that single line, and we don't really see a whole lot happen, but what do you know? When I click on the Start menu and All Apps, we should now see James App here, and you can see how glamorous and sophisticated this app is. I didn't even do anything. I didn't even change the default text where it says content goes here. Okay, that's the kind of developer I am, folks. So I would get fired in 10 minutes if I was a developer. So anyway, we'll close this up. Now we know that the app at least works. You saw that it opened it up a window and all that. Another thing that's kind of cool about apps nowadays in Windows 10, by the way, is that they don't dominate the entire screen. You can resize them. You can place them alongside other apps, and they can be windowed instead of dominating the whole screen. Now, how do I uninstall that? Well, you could choose remove appx package and then name the application. But let me click over here. You can also actually go to the app This is pretty easy. And you can just right-click on it and choose Uninstall. And we uninstall it. That's all there is to it. Now notice that it is indeed gone. And then just real briefly here, I'll show you an alternative method you can use as well. And that will be to use the Deployment Image Service and Management tool. I think that's what the acronym is anyway. It's an older tool that we've had around for a few years now. And Microsoft does seem to prefer PowerShell commandlets instead when you have the choice. But you could still do it this way. You could use this with the /online, meaning that it's going to apply to the currently loaded operating system as opposed to applying it to an image file like a WIM file. And then we're going to add provision Apex package, and the package path is, and I just have it on my local hard drive here, to the /apps or whatever your path is. And then the dependency package path, which again we also have to have. And then in this case, now notice, remember again, with Windows 10 we no longer need the license, so we would be able to just skip that. And the other advantage, though, of using DISM is that this will then provision the application for all users instead of just a single currently logged on user. And then finally, I want to point you to this article, which you can note up here at the top on TechNet. And this is talking about sideloading apps with DISM. Now, notice that the operating systems are all the previous operating systems here. However, it actually does still apply to Windows 10 with the exception of the fact that you no longer need a sideloading key. Remember, we discussed that earlier. The other thing that's useful about this article is, and you can just click on the links to go directly what you want to know about, the Add Apps item. Here we already did this, okay, so we'd add that to a user account, to an online running operating system, for example. But you can also add it to a Windows image, and that's going to be useful. Here you can use, again, DISM with the /online, okay, and then that means that you've mounted a Win image, for example. And then you can add the provision package and then point it to the path. And again, we can't skip the license here. Again, also, if you wanted to use PowerShell instead, which Microsoft seems to be gravitating towards these days, you would add provisioned package. The difference between a provisioned package and what we did earlier is the provisioned package is going to be made available to all users, whereas the PowerShell commandlet that I showed you earlier really only applies to that single user that's actually running that. Okay, so provisioned package kind of puts all the bits that it needs into the image, and then any user that tries to launch the application can get access to it. And then again, to update, remember we don't have to uninstall the old version now with Windows 8.1 or Windows 10, but here it just tells us that we can just run it. Okay, that's pretty much all you do, and it'll then go to whatever the next version is. In this side-loading apps, particularly in online and offline images, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.